The conference room hummed with noise. Voices overlapped, pens scratched against notepads. The faint clicking of keyboards filled the air. In the middle of that chaos, my phone lit up. Tyler. His name cut across the screen like a warning. I excused myself, slipping into the hallway, expecting nothing more than the usual questions. How's the trip? When are you coming home? But his voice was different. Cold. Sharp. Triumphant. I'm divorcing you, he said, as if he'd been rehearsing it. No hesitation, no crack in his tone. Just smug certainty. I've already sold the apartment. You'll have to figure out where to live. Enjoy that. For a second, the world tilted. My lungs locked up, as though my body refused to accept oxygen. The arrogance. The sheer cruelty of it. I gripped the phone tighter, forcing myself to steady my breath. You sold the apartment? My voice was calm, clipped, every word edged with control. He laughed. Dry. Empty. Yeah. Nicole, and I need the money to start our life. She deserves better than that tiny place anyway. Nicole. Her name wasn't new. I'd felt her shadow for months. Tyler's late nights, his sudden work trips, the distance creeping into every corner of our marriage. But hearing her name leave his lips so casually, like she had the right to step into the life I built, lit a fire in me. My chest burned, but I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of hearing me break. Sounds good. I replied evenly, though inside my blood roared. My name is Amelia, and until that phone call, I believed I was married to a man I could trust. 6 years together, years of building what I thought was a partnership. We had worked for that apartment, a cozy 2-bedroom that felt like a dream when I first saw it. It wasn't just a home. It was proof of what we'd built side by side. At least, that's what I let myself believe. Looking back, the cracks were obvious. His dismissive tone whenever I asked about money. His habit of brushing aside my concerns with a grin, a kiss, and nothing real. I thought his confidence came from competence. But no. It came from knowing he could twist me, distract me, keep me blind. The rest of the day blurred. I sat through meetings, nodding when I needed to, all while his words replayed in my head. He thought he'd won. That he could strip me of everything, sell the home I fought for, and walk away untouched. What he didn't know, what he could know, was that I had already moved the deed into my name months earlier. He'd signed the refinance papers without reading, too careless to see the truth. And that mistake would destroy him. By evening, shock gave way to resolve. No tears. No begging. If Tyler wanted war, I would give it to him, and I would win. My first call was to Chloe, my lawyer and oldest friend. I told her everything, detail by detail, my tone calm while my pulse pounded. He sold the apartment, she repeated, disbelief sharp in her voice. Does he even realize he can't do that without you? Apparently not, I said, a flicker of dark amusement breaking through. He thinks the money is already gone, spent on his new life with Nicole. Chloe let out a dry laugh. Then he's in for a rude awakening. The sale is invalid. You're the sole owner. And if he's taken money from the buyer, he could face fraud. That word, fraud, settled in my chest like fire. Finally, the scales shifted. What do we do first? Notify the buyer, Chloe said. Let them know the sale is void. Then, I'll draft a letter to Tyler. Lay out the consequences. If he pushes this, we take him to court. When the call ended, calm washed over me. Tyler thought he'd stripped me of power. He had no idea he'd just written his own downfall. For the rest of my trip, I compartmentalized. Work came first during the day. At night, I sharpened my resolve. The betrayal burned, but the thought of exposing him, of watching his smug confidence unravel, gave me strength I hadn't felt in months. When I boarded the plane home, I was ready. Ready to face him. Ready to dismantle every lie. Ready to reclaim control. This wasn't just about survival. This was about justice. The hours in the air gave me time to think. Tyler's arrogance was astounding. He hadn't even tried to cover his tracks, treating me like an obstacle he could bulldoze on his way out. But instead of drowning in rage, I focused on what came next. He thought I was powerless. But unknowingly, I'd been preparing for this moment all along. The moment the plane touched down, I called Chloe. "I'm back," I said, dragging my suitcase off the carousel. "What's next?" "We've already notified the buyer," she replied, brisk and professional. "They're furious with Tyler, but they're cooperating. That helps. I also sent him a formal letter this morning. It explains the sale's illegality, your ownership, and the fraud issue. He hasn't replied yet, but if I had to guess, he's livid." Good, I thought. Let him rage. Let him stew. When I finally walked into the apartment, silence met me. Heavy, eerie. The air carried the weight of everything he'd tried to erase. And for the first time, I smiled. The apartment was still full of him. Jackets slung carelessly over the chair. Shoes piled by the door, scuffed from nights he never explained. The furniture hadn't moved, yet the air felt altered. The energy was off, like the place knew what he'd done before I even walked in. I set my suitcase down, breathing in the silence, bracing myself for the storm I knew was coming. It didn't take long. That evening, the door slammed open. Tyler stormed in, face flushed, phone clutched tight in his fist like a weapon. He waved Chloe's letter at me, his voice breaking into a furious roar. "What the hell is this? You're telling me I can't sell the apartment? It's half mine." I crossed my arms, planting my feet. My voice came out calm, steady, almost quiet, but sharp enough to cut through his rage. "No, Tyler. It's not. The deed has been in my name for months. You can't sell something you don't own." His expression faltered. Confusion flickered across his face, then hardened into rage. "What are you talking about?" I moved to the file I'd pulled earlier. With deliberate precision, I lifted the deed and held it up for him. After we refinanced, I had the deed transferred to me. "You signed off on it. Or did you skim the paperwork, like you always do?" For a moment he froze. Then his mouth twisted into a sneer. "You think you're so clever. This changes nothing. I already made a deal. You're going to look like a fool when it falls apart." I didn't blink. The sale is already void. The buyer knows it. They're ready to drag you into court if you don't return their money. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "And if you've spent even 1 cent of that deposit, you're in deeper trouble than you can imagine." For the first time, I saw it, the slip in his confidence. He looked away, muttering, You don't know what you're talking about." But my voice didn't waver. "I know exactly what I'm talking about. You've spent years treating me like I'm too naive to notice. But I have been watching, Tyler. And now, you're the one who's cornered." He began pacing, frustration bubbling. "This is ridiculous. You're blowing it out of proportion. You can't just throw me out." I arched a brow. "Actually, I can. Legally, this apartment is mine. You can stay here for now only because I'm giving you that courtesy. But don't mistake kindness for weakness. I'm not the one leaving." Over the next few days, his rage turned into panic. He called me nonstop, voicemails veering between begging and threats, his voice cracking under the weight of his unraveling control. Meanwhile, Chloe was relentless. She made sure every detail was locked down. The buyer pulled out, livid at Tyler for wasting their time. And Chloe prepared the first steps of divorce. "You're in a strong position, Amelia," she told me firmly. "Tyler has no leverage. The sale is void. Fraud charges are hovering over his head. He'll have to play by the rules if he wants to avoid worse." Her words steadied me. They also stung. For years, I'd let him diminish me, dismiss me, tell me fights weren't worth it. I'd given away more than I realized. Not anymore. One evening, my best friend Laura came over. Together, we began boxing up his things, folding, stacking, sealing pieces of him into cardboard. Laura lifted one of his loud, tasteless ties and smirked. "How's he handling all this?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Not well. He still thinks he can talk his way out, but I'm not moving an inch." "Good," she said, tossing the tie into the box. "He doesn't deserve your space. Or your time." Gratitude swelled in me. For so long I had felt isolated in my own marriage, carrying everything while he soaked up the credit. But now, I wasn't alone. I had people standing beside me. And that changed everything. The final blow came when Tyler dared to bring Nicole into my home. I was at the dining table, reviewing paperwork, when the door swung open. They walked in like they owned the place, her arm hooked through his, her eyes scanning the apartment with smug delight. "So, this is where we're staying?" Nicole asked, her voice dripping with entitlement. My heart pounded, but my voice stayed firm. "No. This is where Tyler was staying. You, Nicole, won't be here at all." Her smile faltered. She glanced at Tyler, searching for reassurance, but he looked just as stunned. "What is this?" he demanded. "This," I said, sweeping my hand across the apartment, "is my home. Not yours. Not hers. And it will never be a hotel for you to parade your betrayal through." Nicole's expression iced over, but she stayed silent. Tyler's face flushed with rage. "You can't do this. You're being unreasonable." I held his gaze, unflinching. Unreasonable is selling my home behind my back, taking the money, and thinking I'd just surrender. You're lucky I haven't pressed criminal charges yet. He stood in the doorway, fury radiating off him. Nicole crossed her arms, suddenly less comfortable. "You're being ridiculous, Amelia," he said, desperation creeping into his tone. "You can't kick me out of my own home." I stepped forward, calm but unshakable. "This is my home. The deed has been in my name for months. You signed the papers without even reading them, just like always. So no, Tyler. This isn't yours anymore." And for once, he had no comeback. Nicole's hand tightened on her designer purse, knuckles paling against the strap. Her polished tone cracked as she turned to him. "Wait. What is she talking about? You said this was your apartment. You said you sold it." Tyler flinched, his composure faltering. He tried to wave her off, his voice shaky. "It's complicated. I'll handle it." "It's not complicated." I cut in, stepping forward, my eyes locked on his. "You tried to sell an apartment that doesn't belong to you. The deal is void, Tyler. You don't have a single leg to stand on." Nicole's mask slipped. Her voice rose, sharp with disbelief. "The money. You told me you had the money." She stopped mid-sentence, realization slamming into her. "My God. Did you lie about that too?" "Nicole, let me explain," Tyler pleaded, both hands raised, desperation flickering across his face. "No," I said firmly, cutting through the air before he could spin another lie. "I'll explain. Tyler tried to sell this apartment behind my back, planning to pocket the cash and leave me with nothing. What he didn't know was that the deed has been in my name for months. He failed. And worse, he committed fraud." Nicole's lips parted, then closed again, like she was gasping for breath. "Fraud," she whispered, her voice trembling as she stepped back. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," I replied, arms crossing over my chest. "And unless he clears out by the end of the day, I'll have no problem pressing charges." The bravado finally drained from Tyler's face. He sagged, his voice softening into a plea. "You can't do this, Amelia. We've been together 6 years. You can't just throw me out." I felt my voice harden, each word deliberate. "You threw me out the moment you made that call. You told me you wanted a divorce, mocked me about finding a new place to live. You didn't just betray me, you tried to destroy me. Don't stand here and pretend you're the victim." Nicole's heels scraped against the floor as she backed away, her eyes darting between us. "This is insane," she muttered, clutching her purse like a shield. "You didn't tell me any of this, Tyler. You said you had it all under control." "Nicole, please," he begged, turning to her. "I can fix this. I just need—" "Don't," she cut him off, palm raised. Her voice was sharp now, filled with disgust. "Just don't. I'm not getting dragged into this." And with that, she spun on her heel and stormed out, the door slamming behind her. I allowed myself a small smile. "Looks like you're on your own now." I turned to him, my tone sharpening. "So, let's talk about what happens next." Tyler dropped onto the couch, his head in his hands. "Amelia, please. I know I screwed up. I know. But you don't have to do this." You're right, I said, retrieving a folder from the counter and placing it on the coffee table. I don't have to, but I am. I tapped the folder. This is the divorce paperwork. Chloe already drafted it. The sooner you sign, the sooner we're both free. His face drained of color. He stared at the papers as though they burned his eyes. You really hate me that much? A bitter laugh slipped from me. Hate you?
No, Tyler.
I don't waste my energy on hate. I pity you. You had everything, someone who loved you, a home we built, a life worth keeping. And you threw it all away because your ego was louder than your sense. My chest ached, but my resolve stayed firm. I stood tall. You have until the end of the day. Pack your things. Find somewhere else. This is the last grace I'll give you. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Shoulders slumped, he whispered. Fine. I'll go. Good, I said, stepping toward the door. And don't test me. Chloe's handling everything. If you cross another line, I'll let the courts rip you apart. He rose slowly, grabbed his coat, and left without looking back. His footsteps dragged heavy down the hall, each one echoing like the final chapter of a story already finished. I felt a pang, fleeting, sharp, not for him, but for the life we could have had if he'd been the man I thought he was. It vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by relief. I shut the door and turned the new lock. This was mine now. My home. No one, least of all Tyler, would take it again. The silence afterward was startling. For the first time in years, the air wasn't heavy with his presence, his arrogance, his lies.
It was just me.
Just my space. Just the realization that I had won. Not just against him, but against the doubts that had kept me silent for so long. I stood in the living room, scanning the empty spaces where his clutter once lived. The oversized gaming chair, the framed jerseys, the cheap, gaudy coffee table. All gone. The apartment breathed again, cleaner, brighter, finally mine. That evening, Lauren arrived with takeout and a bottle of wine. She dropped onto the couch with a dramatic sigh. Is he really gone? Gone and not coming back, I said, pouring 2 glasses. I gave him until tonight. He didn't argue. She lifted her glass. To fresh starts and victories well-deserved. I clinked mine against hers. The weight of the past week lifted like smoke. To never letting anyone walk over me again. The next few days, I rebuilt. Piece by piece, I reclaimed the apartment. I shifted the furniture, hung my favorite artwork in the living room, filled shelves with things that brought me joy. It wasn't just redecorating. It was transformation. This space was becoming a reflection of who I truly was, not the shadow of the woman Tyler had tried to shape. Meanwhile, Chloe kept me updated, her voice steady, confident, always reminding me I was no longer powerless. With her, with Laura, with my own newfound strength, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, invincible. The fraud charges are off the table, Chloe explained, her voice calm but steady. The buyer doesn't want to pursue them. But the divorce paperwork, it's moving along smoothly. Once Tyler signs, you'll be officially free. That word, free, hit me like a weight pressing against my chest.
Free.
It wasn't just about legal documents or the end of a marriage. It was about shedding years of invisible chains, the resentment, the self-doubt, the quiet ache of feeling trapped in a life that dismissed me. Piece by piece, it was all being lifted off my shoulders. Tyler tried reaching out. Of course he did. His messages trickled in like a desperate drip from a broken faucet, half-hearted apologies, manipulative pleas, veiled threats wrapped in guilt. I made a mistake. Can't we at least talk about this? Another one read, You're going to ruin me, Amelia. Is that what you want? For once, I didn't answer. I didn't try to soothe, to explain, to fix. I'd wasted enough of myself trying to mend what had always been broken. He made his choices. Now he was finally paying for them. By week's end, the apartment was unrecognizable. Warmer. Brighter.
Mine.
I curled into the couch one evening, a cup of tea warming my hands as the city lights shimmered outside my window. I let the silence settle around me and thought of everything that had unraveled. His betrayal had gutted me, yes, but it also woke me up. For years, I convinced myself I didn't deserve more, that I had to accept whatever scraps of affection or respect Tyler decided to toss my way. But sitting there, wrapped in the glow of a home finally free from his presence, I knew the truth. I was never meant to settle. I wasn't just reclaiming a space. I was reclaiming myself. A month later, my life looked entirely different. Not because of renovations or new furniture, but because of the way the space felt. The apartment reflected me now, my tastes, my laughter, my independence. With Tyler's clutter gone, so was the heaviness. The air felt lighter. The rooms breathed again. The divorce advanced quickly. Chloe, precise and unyielding, closed every door Tyler might try to wedge open. He signed without much resistance, maybe realizing he had no leverage left. There was no dramatic showdown.
No tiri, please.
Just a clean, cold severing of ties. Bittersweet. Brutal. Beautiful. One afternoon, while sorting through old paperwork, I found a photo of us from years ago. His arm around me, both of us smiling, bright, hopeful, untouched by reality. For a moment, I let the memory wash over me. There had been good times, small sparks when I believed in us, when I thought we were building something real. But those sparks had long been drowned by years of neglect, manipulation, betrayal. I slipped the photo into an envelope and tucked it away in a drawer. Not to display, not to destroy, just to keep, a relic of a past that no longer defined me. When the divorce was finalized, Lauren insisted we celebrate. We found ourselves at a rooftop bar downtown, city lights glowing around us, glasses in hand. "You're glowing," she teased, raising her cocktail. "Single life looks good on you." I laughed, a sound lighter than I'd heard from myself in years. "It's not being single," I said. "It's the freedom. For the first time, I'm not living under someone else's rules." We toasted, and as the night stretched on, a new pride took root in me. I had faced one of the hardest battles of my life. And I hadn't just survived it. I had grown through it. Stronger. Clearer. Unshakable. Back home, I started to plan, not just the week ahead, but the life ahead. The apartment had become a symbol of my fight, of my survival. But I knew I wouldn't stay here forever. One day, I'd move into a new place, one untouched by shadows of Tyler. Until then, I would savor every moment inside these walls I had fought so hard to keep. That night, curled on the couch, peace washed over me. I thought about that phone call, the one where Tyler laughed so sure he'd beaten me. And I smiled. His arrogance was his downfall. My quiet strength was my salvation. This wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the beginning of a new chapter. One where I set the rules. One where happiness wasn't borrowed or bargained for. One where it was mine because I chose it.